On 5 News tonight, Heathrow's expansion sparks an MP's revolt. Demolition begins at the Calais jungle, and tragedy at an Australian theme park. Britain's biggest airport is set to get even bigger as the government approves a third runway. But one Tory MP quits in protest, while Boris Johnson says the plans are likely to be scrapped.
Heathrow, in the long term, is not in the right place, and I'm afraid a third runway is undeliverable.
Workers begin to tear down the camps in Calais, the makeshift home of thousands of migrants and refugees. And horror in Australia as 4 people are killed on a theme park ride. Also tonight, the 30-second chat that could tackle obesity. GPs are advised to tell overweight patients they should lose weight, even if they're visiting for an entirely different reason. And I'll be asking whether Sir Bradley Wiggins' glittering career could be overshadowed by drugs controversy. Good evening, welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Matt Barbett. It's a decision which has been debated, delayed, and has caused controversy for years. And now the government's finally approved plans for a third runway at Heathrow Airport. Hundreds of homes will be demolished. It'll cost the taxpayer billions of pounds, and there are concerns about the environmental damage. But the Prime Minister said the decision to expand Britain's biggest airport will benefit ordinary working people across the country. The Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, disagrees, and Conservative MP Zac Goldsmith is so convinced it's a bad idea, he has just resigned in protest. Our political editor, Andy Bell, has more.
Heathrow is cleared to get bigger. The government's rejected Gatwick and instead says the best way to connect to world markets, boost trade and create jobs is to add a third runway here.
This is a momentous step for our country. The decisions taken earlier today, which I shall outline in a moment, are long overdue, but will serve our country for generations to come.
The claim is this expansion will add £61 billion to the economy eventually and create 77,000 jobs. Theresa May has taken a decision delayed by at least 3 of her predecessors. But there's plenty of opposition even inside her own cabinet. Boris Johnson, her Foreign Secretary, once said he'd lie down in front of the bulldozers to stop Heathrow expansion, and he's still unhappy about it.
I'm afraid to say, I think that Heathrow, in the long term, is not in the right place, and I'm afraid a third runway is undeliverable.
And this Conservative MP has resigned to force a by-election as a protest.
I'll be standing in the by-election as an independent candidate. Now, I know that there will be some who see the government's decision today not as the outrage that it is, but as an opportunity to advance their party interests. But this election must be a referendum on Heathrow expansion. It is our chance to send a message to government and to Heathrow via the ballot box. And so I'm asking you to give me the mandate I need to continue fighting this fight. Thank you all very much indeed for coming.
Normally ministers would have to resign if they disagreed with a decision like this. So a question for the man who has to pilot the whole project. Will Boris Johnson be allowed to keep up his opposition?
Boris has already stated his opposition, and I don't expect him to spend all of the next few months, when there are many difficult issues to deal with around the world, campaigning on Heathrow.
So he should now just keep quiet?
It's not a question of him keeping quiet. He's part of a team. We respect the difference of opinion, but we are united as an airports committee. There is an overwhelming majority in Parliament that says this decision is the right one for Britain.
The decision may have been taken, but the opposition is not going to disappear. There are huge concerns about the pollution, the noise pollution, and the damage to the environment. This project is one step closer, but it still has to take off. Andy Bell, 5 News.
So we know what the politicians are saying, but what will it look like? Here's how Heathrow looks today. It has 2 runways, north and south. The third will be immediately above them, and that would allow 260,000 more flights every year. But to make space for that, 783 homes will be demolished, and the M25 motorway will then be routed through a new tunnel. Harmondsworth, will be one of 3 villages partly flattened to clear the path. Our chief correspondent Tessa Chapman has been speaking to the people who live there.
People in Harmondsworth call their village a little oasis. a piece of old England nestled next to Heathrow. They're used to the noise, many have lived with it for generations, but they will fight expansion every step of the way.
And the new boundary fence will be 54 paces from our front door.
The runway would be built at the end of Neil Keveran's front garden. He feels betrayed by David Cameron, who vowed it wouldn't happen.
We've made life choices based on that decision. Where to lay your loved ones to rest, where to scatter your loved ones to ashes, where to send your children to school, how much to borrow. Lots of life choices based on the promise of a Prime Minister.
Neil's daughter's school would be bulldozed, along with 800 homes here, like Armel Thomas's. Last year, she and her husband received a letter saying their house would be demolished if expansion got the go-ahead. She's convinced the stress contributed to his death weeks later.
He might have been frailed, but he wasn't dying. He just gave up. He realised that there was nothing else he could do, and actually by dying he was giving me the freedom to fight for this village, for my community and for his legacy.
What would your father say? Theresa May!
And she's not alone. Some campaigners are fearful for the environment, others their homes and livelihoods.
You know, people feel very strongly about this, and you know, people power is something that, you know, Great Britain has been built on, and I don't think we're going to give up. I know we're not going to give up, and we are going to continue.
Harmondsworth Village is a conservation area. There are buildings here, like this church, that date back to medieval times. As one local resident told me, they didn't move into Heathrow's back garden, Heathrow moved into theirs. This battle between neighbours is about to become even more bitter. Tessa Chapman, 5 News, Harmondsworth.
Andy Bell is in Westminster now. Andy, there is still an awful lot of opposition to this, both in Westminster and where Heathrow is. Is it actually going to happen?
Well, there's certainly going to be plenty of opposition. I mean, just on the Zac Goldsmith by-election, in the last few minutes, the Conservative Party has confirmed they will not run an official candidate against him. So I imagine Zac Goldsmith will be re-elected there. And as he said, he wants to make that a referendum about opposition to the expansion of Heathrow. There are an awful lot of hurdles still for Heathrow to get through. There's got to be a year of consultation, then a vote here in Parliament, then it goes through the planning process where various organisations, various councils are trying to stop it happening. So I think we are still a long way from this being confirmed. Even with a fair wind, if you can put it that way, even if everything goes to plan, people aren't expecting this to be built for another 10 years or so. So there is still a long way to go. A lot of things could still stop this happening, but we have had a decision today, one which a lot of people would say has been a long time coming.
Andy, thanks very much. The French authorities have begun demolishing the migrant camp in Calais known as the Jungle. For 2 days, thousands of people who've been queuing to leave have been put on buses to reception centres across France. But as night falls and the bulldozers move in, there are increasing concerns over the number of children still inside the camp. From there, Dominic Reynolds reports.
People ate here, slept here, and dreamed of a better life here. But it was no one's dream to live here. And after standing for almost a year on the outskirts of Calais, the so-called jungle is coming down. These 3 friends are 14 and 15 and 3,000 miles from their parents. They made it to Calais from Eritrea. Thomas said he hoped it was true, that a new law means they can come to the UK.
If you go to England, we have aim, we learn, we have good future. If we go to
You have
England.
a good future?
Yeah. If not, we have not good future. We are children, but our life will destroy.
They were moved yesterday out of tents and into these shipping containers, designated safe spaces here for children. Once they were registered, they were lent a phone to call their mothers.
They cry when we call for them, and we also cry with them.
You cried when you talked to your mother?
Because we miss together. We don't see a long time. Still now we cry if we remember them.
The queue to register outside the camp was tense at times. The children are supposed to have a line of their own, but not everyone's got to the front yet. Mohammed tried 3 times yesterday. He does have family in Britain. He says they paid to release him from an ISIS prison in Libya on his way here. He is 17.
In a prison underground, you don't have any food, any water. You drink your
urine?
Yeah. And it is day-to-day fighting for you.
He's confident his 8-month journey from Eritrea is about to end in Britain.
If the British government says, no, you can't come to Britain, what will you do?
If it is I don't know. It's difficult for me. That day it is no good. You know, I think this I help you, no problem. The British.
You think they will definitely help?
But this camp's being emptied fast. Waiting coaches have taken thousands of people already. And one charity has called for this whole process to stop so children can be evacuated first.
You know, we saw this happen in April where the southern part of the camp was demolished and 129 children went missing.
It's clear this process isn't about to stop. But there were still plenty of people in the camp this afternoon. Authorities here will be hoping everyone says goodbye to this place peacefully tonight. Dominic Reynolds, 5 News in Calais.
Next, GPs have been told to stop worrying about causing offence and offer weight loss advice to obese patients. Experts say even if overweight people visit their doctor for unrelated reasons, the GP should intervene. Now, it follows a study by Oxford University that found a 30-second chat could lead to significant weight loss. One of the people on the study, Paul Cooper, joins me now. Alongside him is GP Una Coles. So, Paul, did you go to the doctor for a different reason than they just struck up a chat about your weight?
Well, yes, I went and was sort of intercepted to say, would I take part in this study?
Oh, so you knew it was a study? They didn't
well,
just
they
say
said it was a study, but they didn't tell me anything about it.
Were you offended at all when they started picking up on your
Not particularly, because all they did, first of all, was to weigh me before I went into the doctor. And then when I got in there, it was actually going to be a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, which was waiting for me.
Right.
But at the same time, the doctor talked to me quite a bit about my weight and offered me some of the options that were on the programme. So I guess I was pretty happy to talk about that because it was fairly obvious that that's a very weight-related disease that I had come up with.
And was it a situation you're already familiar with before? Did you think, I'm probably a little bit overweight here, I need to do something about it? Was that at the back of your mind?
Yes, I had previously tried to lose weight. I was probably about 98 kilos, I think. I just checked on my app at that point. And I tried to lose weight before, but normally put it all back on again. And I think talking to the doctor about it was actually quite significant in that sense. And I eventually got down to 83 kilos.
Which means you lost a couple of stone, which is very impressive. You know, how do you feel about this? Because, you know, if someone's there to talk about something entirely unrelated and you suddenly spark up a conversation about their body shape, that's got to be awkward at best.
It is awkward, and it's quite easy to think, oh, maybe I shouldn't bring it up, maybe they'll feel offended. But then doctors look at it from a medical point of view. We're looking at it from, if you're obese, it'll shorten your life by 10 years. Obesity can lead to 13 different types of cancers. For women, it's breast cancer that women are worried about. For men, it's prostate cancer. So I think the study is brilliant. 30 seconds is really good.
What about the difficulties that you might face, though? Because it's different in Paul's situation. He was happy to go along with it, but not everyone's going to like being told these home truths.
That's true, and it really depends on the GP as well. I mean, I'm slim, and then somebody could say to me, well, you know, it's genetic. You don't really know what it's like being me. Or it could be an obese GP feeling very uncomfortable talking to an obese patient because they think, well, you should know what to do first. So I think this study is saying that, look, all GPs should, for 30 seconds, forget about causing offence and just bring it up if you do see somebody who's got a waistline above 40 inches, which is the danger zone, and for women, 35 inches, because that's going to increase risk of heart attack, diabetes in your case, and cancer, and that's important.
And look, as a GP, someone's going to hear you saying that now, perhaps, and they might have those measurements and think they need to do something about it. But Paul, I mean, just to finish off, if someone is out there, and they probably know already that they're a little bit on the larger side, or maybe even bigger than that, should they be afraid that the GP is going to tell them what's what?
Well, I think, thinking about it afterwards and the experience of it, I think there's nobody better than the GP. They almost have a right to bring that up, I would have thought, in my way of thinking anyway, even if I hadn't had the diagnosis. I don't think I would have been offended. anyone else talking to me about it might have been a different story, I suppose.
Well, you are walking proof that in some ways it works. Thank you both very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 men and 2 women have been killed on a ride at a theme park on Australia's Gold Coast. A malfunction on the Thunder River Rapids ride at Dreamworld caused 2 of the victims to be ejected and 2 others to be caught inside the ride. Charlotte Grant has more.
It's known as the biggest theme park in Australia, but now Dreamworld is at the centre of a major investigation as police try to establish how this River Rapids ride could lead to 4 people losing their lives.
One of the rides have sustained some sort of malfunction, causing 2 people to be ejected from a ride. Another 2 people were caught inside the ride.
The accident's believed to have happened here as the ride was coming to an end. Each raft can carry up to 6 people at a time, but as they went onto a mechanical section of track, a raft flipped, trapping people inside. Dreamworld bosses have expressed their shock and closed the park until further notice.
We are deeply shocked and saddened, and our hearts and our thoughts go to the families involved.
This is how the ride is advertised by Dreamworld. It's seen as family-friendly, with children as young as 2 allowed on board. The victims, according to police, were in their 30s and 40s, but there have been concerns about safety before, with eyewitnesses saying just hours earlier the same ride had already broken down.
And the engineers had to come, they drained all the water out and then had to refill it back up, and then we were allowed to go. But yeah, we were stuck there for about 30-40 minutes at least.
Running for 3 decades, the River Rapids is one of Dreamworld's most popular rides, but now it is also its most deadly. Charlotte Grant, 5 News.
Still to come this evening on 5 News Tonight. The king of the track prepares for his last race in Britain as controversy surrounds his retirement. And
Made my birthday. Oh, that's what you wanted to do. You have.
no carbs before Marbs. But is it the end of the Essex Girl, a campaign to get the phrase taken out of the dictionary? We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. It is one of the most traumatic experiences a family can have, and yet for so many people whose babies are stillborn, there is stigma that makes it difficult to seek the support they need. In 2014, there were more than 3,500 stillbirths in the UK. Around a third of babies die after a full-term pregnancy. And in around a third of cases, the cause of death is described as unexplained. Well, a new documentary explores the difficulties that many couples face. In a moment, we'll be talking to its director. First, here's a look.
Many of you are facing your first Christmas without your baby. I remember only too well just how painful and challenging that first Christmas is. And my heart goes
Debbie Howard, who produced and directed the documentary, joins me now. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
What prompted you to want to make this?
2 friends of mine had lost babies a few years ago, and I'd never really encountered anything to do with baby loss at the time. And it really struck me the massive impact that had on them for a long time, you know, afterwards. And I started to look into it when I was writing a short film that I made before Still Loved about this issue. And I was deeply shocked and amazed at the very high statistics of baby loss, but also this complete wall of silence around this issue, this massive stigma.
So there's a huge gap between how prevalent it is. I mean, it's not very common, but it happens to a significant number of people, and then the number of people who are talking about it, which is not very many at all.
No, exactly. And it is actually a lot more common than people realise.
Yeah.
You know, with 1 out of 4 pregnancies ending in loss, that includes all kinds of loss. But that's actually very high statistics.
So tell me how you then went about making it, and you must have gone through some difficulties in getting it made.
It's been a real challenge. The stigma around baby loss has also applied to the film, and you know, we've had a lot of difficulties convincing people that it's a film that needs to be made, that there's an audience for the film. and that, you know, it is a very relevant film, a topic for a documentary, because it's never been looked at before, really. And we've been screening the film at various cinemas throughout the UK during October for Baby Loss Awareness Month. And, you know, we've had an incredible response. We've had sold-out screenings or very full screenings and really great feedback.
An incredible response, a moving response. I mean, what kind of emotions are people experiencing having seen the film?
I mean, it's, you know, it's a very tough watch. I didn't want to make a film about this issue and then sugarcoat it or hide it away.
Yeah.
So we really stay with the families and the journey that they go on over a 3-year period. And, you know, it is difficult, but it's also quite an uplifting and heartwarming film by the end of the story.
And I know you're keen for it not to just be seen in cinemas, but for people to be able to watch it at home on television. That's something you're pushing for now, for a broadcaster to show it, or for it to be made available online or streaming service, perhaps. But just one final broader question. Should there be more documentaries looking at those really difficult questions that a lot of us just do not want to confront?
I think that's the job of documentaries, and, you know, and there's many amazing documentaries out there that are doing exactly that. And I think it's, you know, filmmakers have to be brave when they're tackling these kinds of issues, because they are things that people would rather not think about. But if we don't look at them, there can't be awareness which will lead to less babies dying in the future and better care for those that have lost a baby.
All right, Debbie, many thanks indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, if you want more information on the support you can get, you'll find links on our Facebook page. Search there for Channel 5 News. Next, at least 59 cadets and guards have been killed in an attack on a police college in Pakistan. 3 militants wearing suicide bomb vests entered the college late last night, reportedly taking hostages. A major security operation lasted for hours, and all of the attackers were killed. So-called Islamic State says it was behind it. The career of one of our most successful sportsmen is drawing to a close. Sir Bradley Wiggins has become a cycling great, but as he begins his last ever race here in the UK, there is controversy hanging over him. Sir Bradley Wiggins, or Wiggo as he's more commonly known, is one of our most decorated sports stars. Amongst his record-breaking 8 Olympic medals is a gold from London 2012, where he sat on a throne in front of a roaring home crowd. That same year, of course, he ended the Tour de France in the yellow jersey, becoming Britain's first ever winner of the race. Those achievements, as well as his many other medals, earned him a knighthood. But his illustrious career is in danger of ending on a bit of a sour note. He's under scrutiny after it emerged he'd asked permission to use an anti-inflammatory drug before 3 of his biggest races. Wiggins has strenuously denied any wrongdoing, and there are no suggestions that he broke any rules. Even so, could it all overshadow Sir Bradley's entire career? With me now to talk about this is cycling journalist Michael Hutchinson, who's represented Great Britain and Northern Ireland at events, including the Commonwealth Games, and raced against Sir Bradley Wiggins when he was just plain old Bradley Wiggins, Michael. What do you think, though, here? Because let's just clarify, he hasn't broken any rules. He had a therapeutic usage exemption to take these medicines at certain times for allergies and asthma. So what's the problem?
Well, the problem is that there's a grey area here, because there are the rules which Bradley Wiggins and Team Sky adhere to very strictly. They cleared this with the world governing body and the anti-doping body, but there is sort of an expectation of ethics which is tighter than the rules, and what they've done is fall into the grey area in between. So they have behaved exactly properly, but not the way most of the fans want them to behave.
And Team Sky say everything was done according to the rules. They're committed to clean competition. They also say they're reviewing their policy surrounding these TUEs, as they're called, and looking at the issue of transparency. But other teams do want to be seen to be going a bit further, being open and more honest. Do you think that Sky, perhaps not doing it thus far, has in some ways treated Sir Bradley Wiggins unfairly?
I don't think anybody's won in this, because this grey area that they seem to have been operating in means that, you know, some fans accept that it's fine, they've obeyed the strict rules. Other fans feel very, very let down. And what they actually need to do, I think the governing bodies need to tighten the rules up and produce a set of rules that chime with what the fans and what the other athletes and other teams want.
And just finally, look, when it comes to cycling, questions surround so many riders, and we don't know who is clean and who perhaps isn't. Only the rider themselves ultimately knows. But Bradley Wiggins has achieved so much. Look, there he is in Rio with his team Pursuit colleagues. I mean, a fantastic career.
Yeah, I mean, to set everything else aside, Bradley Wiggins is going into his final appearance as a former winner of the Tour de France, a former world time trial champion on the road, multiple world champion on the track, Olympic champion on the track. He's won 5 Olympic titles. It's a stellar career
And he'll still
by any
loved by
measure.
many as a result of that.
And I think the fans who go along to watch him over the next 5 days are going to love watching him in his last appearance.
Because he's with Mark Cavendish as well. Thank you very much indeed, Michael. Good to see you. Now, look, if I said Essex girl, what would you think? Unintelligent, materialistic, promiscuous? They're not my words, believe it or not. That really is the English dictionary definition of Essex girl. Unsurprisingly, there's a petition to change that and have the term scrubbed out. Minnie Stevenson went to Essex to ask the question.
Welcome to the world of reality TV show Towie, home to some of Britain's most famous so-called Essex girls. But it's an official definition which has got thousands extremely cross. In the words of the Collins Dictionary, and I quote, an Essex girl is a young working-class woman from the Essex area, typically considered as being unintelligent, materialistic, devoid of taste and sexually promiscuous. That's an appalling stereotype, says a new online campaign which is trying to get the definition as it stands removed from the dictionary. Towie star Danny Armstrong told me she's proud to be an Essex girl, but does not agree with the dictionary's description.
What do you think about this argument? Some people say that, reality TV shows, do they reinforce stereotypes? What would you say to that?
I think with reality TV shows, you've got to understand that's just a group, a small minority of people in Essex that have got together and created a fun TV show. It's entertainment. We play a little bit on that character. Yes, we're glamorous, we like to look good, but not everyone in Essex is what you call, say, a Towie girl.
So I want to find out what Essex girls make of this dictionary definition and being labelled as unintelligent, materialistic and devoid of taste. So I've come to Brentwood in Essex.
Armed with a dictionary, I want to find out whether people here think that definition is fair.
What do you think about that?
Rubbish. That's appalling, isn't it? Untrue.
A load of old...
Not true.
Family show, sir?
Yeah.
Rubbish.
Rubbish. Load of old... Right. Not all the girls are like that.
Not good.
No?
Well, the young bit was all right, but the rest of it wasn't. Stick with that.
How would you like to define an Essex girl in real life?
Tough.
Yeah.
Independent.
Someone that's not tangerine, has a brain cell.
The Collins Dictionary told us they applaud the campaign, however they believe it would be dangerous to ban words purely because people may be offended. The feeling here in Brentwood, though, is clear. Don't judge a book by its cover. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News, Essex.
That's it from me. Bye for now.